Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Heavens Metal video podcast. Sometimes we call it the Heavens Metal vodcast, but we always call it metal. We are metal, we are family, right? Hey, thanks for joining us this early Saturday morning. It's super early for one of our guests on the West Coast. And I just want to thank you for being here. Thanks for the Sanctuary International folks. It's given me a platform for a few years now where I do these little Heavens Metal vodcast, like a 5 to 10 minute video about nothing and everything, like a devotional, like whatever's going through my mind. Sometimes we reminisce about the past in Heavens Metal and HM Magazine. Sometimes we talk about current events, what's going on. And but now we're here now for a little expanded edition, a 1 hour live show here on Saturday mornings. And thank you for being here. I've got three wonderful guests today, and the first guest is a friend of mine. He is a multi-instrumentalist musician. He's a composer. He sold $250,000 Steinway pianos in Southern California back in the day, and he created and executive produced and composed and wrote a musical, and he plays an instrument that he says is gloriously nerdy, but I love it. And I love it too. This is my friend Peter B. Emerson from the He Rules the World musical. Hey, Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Doug. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. Thank you so much for being on. So you play this instrument called the keytar.
Yes, I do.
How fun is that?
I tell you, it is gloriously fun. Being a keyboard player primarily has its drawbacks because generally you're just stuck in one location, and you see the guitar players get all the glory down front and running around and looking cool. And when somebody put a keytar in my hands, I was like, oh, okay, now I understand. So yes, it is gloriously nerdy and just a lot of fun to play.
Nice. So when you're 2 feet from the edge of the stage and looking out the audience, what are the facial expressions you're seeing when you're jamming on that thing?
Usually disbelief that somebody is weird enough to actually carry that thing around their neck and play it in public. Sometimes they throw apples and rotten fruit and things like that. No, actually, I get a lot of great comments on it because it's not very common. A lot of people have seen them before, but maybe in passing. Maybe they remember Danny Elfman playing one with Oingo Boingo back in the day, or maybe they saw someone like Herbie Hancock way back in the day playing. So it's a fairly uncommon to see a keyboard player come out front with them. There are some, current Christian bands that use them. In fact, For King and Country has a keytar that they pass around the entire band. We went and saw them last year, and I think at least 6 people in that band played the keytar at one time or another. The same keytar, they just kind of passed it around.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it really is. And I was just thinking, wow, it takes 6 of them to do what I can do. And that's funny.
6 in 1, maestro. Let's talk a little bit about He Rules the World. What prompted you to compose this giant, monstrous show called He Rules the World, a Christmas nativity rock opera, as it were?
Yeah, so He Rules the World is a concert telling of the nativity story, and it starts with the prophecies of Isaiah and goes all the way through the family returning from Egypt after the death of Herod. And it really chronicles the personal side of the story of the birth of Christ with Mary and Joseph. And so we actually hear everything first person in the show. And it's really kind of unique that way. But it was inspired back in, what was it? 2018, late 2018, I took my daughter to go see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra perform down in San Antonio. And you guys know that Trans-Siberian. It's a great show. Lots of technical stuff in it. Really soaring guitar solos, tight harmonies, lots of visual spectacle in there. And so it was really, really entertaining. And the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, wow, this is really good. But their Christmas show was really just kind of Christmas adjacent, and it really didn't have anything to do with the birth of Christ. And so that kind of stuck with me, and I decided that I was going to use my skills that I developed, over my lifetime, and put them to use doing something that actually was a little bit more my style of music, which is a little less hard rock like theirs, and more progressive influence, jazz influence, classic rock influence, soul, R&B, that kind of style, and then just write something that told the story, from beginning to end. And so if you go to church on Christmas Eve, you might sing 3 hymns, maybe 4, if they have enough time at a Christmas Eve service. And those hymns each tell just a slight portion of the story. It's like a little stained glass window. And each of those stained glass windows is about a portion of the story. So what I did is I took those melodies, Joy to the World, Away in the Manger, so on and so forth, and used those as familiar launching points to go into new material. And I used them at the point of the story where the hymn in the hymnal actually is the lyrics are about. So Away in the Manger is about the time in the manger. It's not about what happened before that or after that. We Three Kings, it's about it's after the birth. So they're all little pieces of the story, and I just lined them all up together, used as many of those melodies as I could, and kind of put them together to create this visual spectacle. And we have 5 live musicians on stage, 2 guitars, bass, drums, and I'm on keyboards and the guitar a couple times during the show. And we have 5 additional singers out front, including a very talented David Gashin, who is our gentleman that is our featured vocalist, and he's most known for playing the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway and in Europe over 1,300 times. So we have a full light show, LED projection in the back. In between most of the songs, we have narration going on that forwards the story, and those segments are all animated. And we worked with a Christian animation house in London to create that content for us. So that's the show in a nutshell. We've been plugging at it for a couple of years. Since 2022 is the first production, and we did a full run of shows last year, and we did a Christmas in July last year as well. And we are hoping to get on the road again this year.
Awesome. That's a great synopsis of the show, Peter. We've chatted about the show many times, some doing stuff like this, and that's like the perfect way to you really crystallize what the show is about and how it brings all those parts together to make an even greater whole. And I've got lots of images and a couple of videos at the heavensmetalmagazine.com website. If you search in the search bar, He Rules the World, you'll see a couple of previews I did. There's also a review of the concert. And there's some videos there that show some of the guitar players jamming and the Patapan scene, and a picture of you wielding that guitar so gloriously under the lights. It's fantastic. Well, Peter, I wanted to bring in some of our other guests here. And our next guest is Kevin Carruthers. Please stay in the studio here. We want to talk some more about the guitar real soon. Kevin Carruthers is from the West Coast. He has been a staff writer for Heaven's Metal forever and a longtime friend. Kevin, thanks for coming on the show today.
That was a scary picture.
I know. That's your picture for Meet the Crew. When you want to introduce yourself to the website visitors, that's
Absolutely.
Your photo. So you have to.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Yes, it's about 7:15 here out on the West Coast, and just getting ready to kick it into gear and rock another day.
I know that one thing in common that my friend Peter and my friend Kevin have in common. Kevin's email address is like Kevin2112 at Gmail. So you know what band
Oh yeah.
he is very, very
Nice.
fond of.
Da, 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 da.
Yes.
There we go. The boys.
There we
Nice.
go.
All right.
See?
I like it.
I called it. There's nothing like the Rush family.
Nailed it.
One of my favorite jokes when somebody says, "There's no Rush," and I said, "I know. Thanks for bringing me down." The band broke up. You know?
Well, they didn't break up so much as
Yeah.
out of respect for Neil.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. So today, music is shared. There's just so much to choose from out there. There's a plethora of ways. One thing that's missing in music is the tastemakers. They're far and wide in between. For somebody to wade through all the options out there, it's hard. Back in the day, Kevin started being a tastemaker with the white multi-produced cassette mail order only show called the White Metal Show. And you would get a little envelope with maybe a tissue paper wrapped around it or some cushion around it. Was it every month those came out, or is it more frequent than that?
So, brief synopsis. So there were 10 white metal shows, and when now I am getting old. 30 something years ago at this point, I really wanted to be a DJ. That had been my whole thing, and when I came to the Lord, in my teen years, I thought, what a great way to share stuff. And I met Dave Johnson with White Throne. He and I, and some others, we put together White Throne magazine. Dave Johnson had this little 4-channel Radio Shack mixing desk. And I thought, oh, this would be cool. And I kept bugging him, and finally he let me borrow it. And what I did was I took a tape deck, a record player, and another tape deck. And a microphone, a Radio Shack microphone I used, and it sounded better than it sounds. Anyway, ran it into this little old board. This is in 1986, 87. And I would mix this stuff. I used Barnabas's Prelude from Feel the Fire as the intro music. And then I just played DJ. And the first one was an hour long, and then after that I made them 90 minutes long. And what I did was I took demos, and at that point, there were Christian, if you were a Christian heavy metal head and you went into the Bible bookstore looking for something, chances are they may not have it. So my whole thought was, what a great way, and wouldn't it be cool if you actually got to listen to stuff that you couldn't hear, in like a radio show type format. And a part of it was just me getting to play DJ. And so what I did was, I remember I talked to Dave Johnson, and Dave said, well, you should send this to Doug and see what he thinks. And so I sent a copy of I think I sent you a cassette. And what I did was I said, if you sent, and the ad was the White Metal Show, send me a blank cassette with like $2 with a self-addressed envelope. I'd pay the postage. Take the $2 because you could send stuff to anywhere for roughly $2 back then. And I would dub it off on a boombox I had. It had twin decks, and I'd send it back. And I started, after that ad, and I started to do these, my parents were like, why are you getting all this stuff? Where is this coming from? Because I got stuff from people not just in California or in Texas, but then it was New York, and then it was, Kansas. Then it was like Alberta. Then it was Brazil or Mexico. And then it ended up being, I remember getting stuff from Scandinavia, and you could do this and send it, cheaply. And I had a lot of fun with it. And then, like so many things when you're young, you just kind of go, I kind of am ready to move on to something else. And I was doing a lot of other things in the Christian rock metal scene at that time in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I stopped. But Anybody out there heard of Zer Gabriel? I put Zer Gabriel on a white metal show. How about TNK, the Noble Knights? They're on a white metal show. Rock Salt, Front Runner, Paul Kupek's first band. All of this, and then I'd mix it in like a Bloodgood track, a Barren Cross song, Philadelphia, Saint, Soldier, Cross Force. So it definitely, it was a lot of fun, and my parents didn't know what to make of it, but it was cool. I dug it. And
that's awesome.
The caveat on all that was, I don't know, probably 15 years ago now, somebody let me know that these silly, I honestly, in my mind now, you hear this 18-year-old kid, I don't have them anymore. I don't have any of them. However, somebody curated all of them and uploaded them. They're on a website. You can download and listen, and he's broken out what songs are played in it. All I can remember as far as the website, he went by the name of Megaloth. And I probably should know who that is, but I don't. But he had I believe all 10. And then he had some commentary, like he was trading them with somebody in 5 Iron Frenzy. And I'm like, I'm going, what? 5? Okay. God used it. And if you were out there and you got a chance to hear him and you dug it, I'm glad you did. So.
We need to dig up that link and share that on our resource page. That's awesome. Before there was file sharing, there was cassette tape sharing.
The bootleg underground, you get one of these things and send it out there, and guys would have whole lists of stuff. Of course, we used to call it bootlegging back then, and now
then they called it mixtapes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to bring in another guest, another Heaven's Metal staff writer. This guy has been around for a long time, writing for the magazine. He's done youth ministry, and he actually helps facilitate the Audio Feed Music Festival, which took over after Cornerstone left. And so I just want to bring in Lloyd Harp, everybody. Everybody give Lloyd a hand.
Great to see you.
Thanks for being here, Lloyd.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
So how do youth ministry and music intersect?
Oh, man. In surprising ways sometimes. So, back when I was a teen, we were all listening to hard rock and metal and stuff. The culture's changed a lot in terms of what's popular, but I've found it's less about, kind of connecting with kids in the kind of music that you're into, because the shared interests aren't there as much anymore. But I've found that being a person who likes music, who goes to shows, who, writes for Heaven's Metal and things like that is just, it's kind of part of who you are. And when you bring your authentic self to ministry and connect with people over that, then that always kind of sparks conversations and connection, and just makes you an interesting person to find out. I've got kids in our youth group now that are into archery and into track and stuff like that, and the more I get to know them and find out what they're into, then they might be interested in what I'm into as well. So it's more just about having that shared human experience rather than a specific music genre, if that makes sense. Yeah,
for sure. The human interaction part is amazing.
Yeah.
So you're working with the Audio Feed Festival.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that and how that's going.
So yeah, we moved back to the States. I've lived in the UK for a few years, and we moved back to the States in 2021. I attended my first Audio Feed in 2022, and that was because my friend Nate Allen asked me to come and speak that year. So I did. After that, kind of got involved. I'm on the core team now, which is a group of about 5 or 6 of us who do kind of all the big behind the scenes, planning and decision making. And then my specific role at Audio Feed is I'm the volunteer coordinator. So if you're looking to come to a Christian music festival and you want to get involved behind the scenes, I'm the guy to talk to about, joining the trash team or the security team and things like that. And it does come with a free ticket. So if you want a free ticket to a festival and you don't mind putting in, 2 or 3 hours a day on a shift, then definitely get in touch.
Volunteer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So going around the horn, I know Peter's only got about 4 more minutes left with us. What has tilted your ear lately as far as music goes?
Oh, that's a great question. So my musical journey is probably very different than any of yours. My studies and passion for the longest time was jazz. So I've got degrees in jazz studies and composition and such. And so I was really steeped in that. And of course I love classic rock and all of that. And really didn't listen to too much new stuff past the early 90s, because I didn't feel that it was speaking to me, and I was doing other things. I was really into the jazz scene at that time anyway. And so I have to thank Doug, because I've been asking him for suggestions on people to listen to and things, and it's been really, yeah, I know you know where I'm going. And he turned me on to Neil Morse, and that stuff just really speaks to me. So I'm really just blown away by there you go. Blown away by the musicality there, and the structure and all of that. And that really speaks to me. As soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh, I get that. Yeah. Okay. I need more of that. And I think I listened to his entire catalog in the amount of time that it takes to listen to his entire catalog. And it's just fantastic stuff. And it's really inspiring to know that that's been out there, and I was unaware of it. So I'm a little bit of a sponge when it comes to that type of stuff now. And I can honestly say that my music has been relatively uninfluenced by modern music, because I just haven't been listening to it. I haven't been listening to much contemporary stuff, but the Neil Morse stuff is really it's really great. And I was listening to that and I was going, man, that sounds like Kansas. And then Doug's like, well, by the way, and so we hear all the Kerry Livgren stuff and all of that in there, and all that influence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where has this been most of my life? And I didn't know anything about it at all. So I'm a little late to the game when it comes to being up on who all of those great musicians are and the people that are currently doing it. But I would say that my personal taste and styles really does lean into that progressive side, and I didn't even know that the genre progressive metal existed until recently. I just thought it was progressive music. So there you go.
Right on. I got a little story to share before we say goodbye to Peter. Peter's got to take off at 9:30. I was traveling with him to a football game, and he told me that when he was teaching music for 18 years at Harker Heights High School, he had a segment in his music class called Hip Horizon.
Hypnus Horizons, yeah.
The
Hypnus Horizon.
Hypnus Horizon. I had most of it right. To expand the horizon and the musical palette of his students, he would play them a snippet of music. In one particular classroom day, he dropped on them Yngwie Malmsteen. And so
Black Star.
Kudos to Peter for that. I remember the first time I heard Black Star, it was a floppy little piece of vinyl 45 that came inside of the Guitar World magazine when Yngwie broke.
Yeah,
Peter,
so that's kind of
on the show.
Yeah, I've got a second to tell this story, because it's really kind of funny. Is I usually like to set the students up in a way, and I said, we're going to listen to this classical guitarist, because he opens that up with like a 5 or 6 minute classical guitar, riff on Bach and Segovia and all that other stuff that he's doing in there before it kicks into the and so the kids are like, oh, we're going to listen to a classical guitar player, but they're looking at him and they're going, he just doesn't look right. And so when it kicks into that, and then he just goes into his, guitar vomiting, for another 20 minutes, and he's prancing around the stage like a possessed nymph, and playing it like a typewriter and all of that. They were like, okay, I've never seen anybody do that before. So yeah, I like to drop that stuff in there. And had I still been doing that, because I'm not teaching any longer, but had I known about Neil Morse, I certainly would have put Neil Morse in there. So there you go. Hey, thanks, Doug, for having me, and Kevin and Lloyd and John behind the scenes. It was really nice to meet you guys, and look forward to speaking with you guys again.
You bet. Thanks for being on, Peter. And the next time we have you on, we'll play a little snippet of your guitar solo from the He Rules the World. Little teaser for the audience.
It up live, and we can go from there.
Yeah.
Great.
So it's early morning, and I had to use coffee from yesterday this morning. It tasted pretty good, but I didn't have Headbangers Brew, and that's my cue. We're going to go to a commercial halftime break here real quick, and we'll be back, and Kevin and Lloyd will tell us about what they've been listening to lately. Have a great day, Peter.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
Hello, my friends. I hope to see you this year at the Loud and Proud Festival. I'm going to be there along with a lot of great bands and a lot of great people. Great fellowship, great music, great time together. Loud and Proud Festival coming up.
All right, we are back. I got a fresh little fill of my coffee now, so I am got the caffeine working. So, Kevin, real quick, what have you been listening to lately? What's turned your ears sideways?
Well, right before Easter, I actually kind of went on it's funny he mentioned Neil Morse. I kind of went on a Neil Morse spree, and that his I will say rock opera, Jesus Christ, The Exorcist.
Yeah.
I've been listening to that. But having said that, I've also been listening. I'm back to Similitude of a Dream, Neil Morse, double disc, great progressive rock, hard rock, great. Also I've been listening to The Great Adventure by Neil Morse, which is also based on, John Bunyan's book, Pilgrim's Progress, if I remember correctly. Quickly picked up a gold disc, Deliverance, Stay of Execution, and I hadn't listened to this record in a long time. been listening to it, just going, man, great production. It's not like, obviously, it's not like the debut. However, the songs on here are awesome. Whether it's the title track, Windows of the Soul, Ramming Speed, Lord of Dreams, it's a great album, and I've just gone. It feels new. I haven't listened to it in so long. Also, yeah, a lot of stuff here recently. Picked this one up. This is a band from Brazil that's been around for a long time, and I'd never heard of them. Fancy that. Called Alos. Kind of like Camelot, but this album is called Strong Delusion, and the back, on the back here, they quote, it says, "And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may be with you forever." And the production is phenomenal, great musicianship. Really been digging that. But of course, I'm rocking the Saint shirt this morning. Their 2025 European bootleg. I was able, thanks to Mr. Richard Lynch, to get a copy of this. They have Eli Princeton now is their lead vocalist. And this thing is like a Saints greatest hits with Eli singing. And it's fabulous. I mean, it's got the big thing for me on here. My favorite Saints song is on here, which is Through the Sky. And it absolutely is this whole thing. They do Immortalizer, Hellblade, The Congregation, Too Late for Living, The Path, Through the Sky, Eyes of Fire, The Mark, In the Night, In the Battle. I mean, it's a great thing. It's really a collector's disc at this point. They only printed, as I understand, 150 of them, and they took them to Europe when they did their tour. And great stuff. And then, honestly, I've been listening to some Phil Keaggy. His album Jammed, which is all instrumental. Been listening to some of that quite a bit lately, as well as 220 Volt, which is also another instrumental. And I'm waiting for that Neil Morse project thing that's coming. I know it got shipped, which is Cosmic Cathedral, which has Neil Morse, Phil Keaggy, Chester Thompson, who played drums for Genesis. And for the life of me at this moment, the bass player's name eludes me. They had a couple of videos they posted on YouTube of what it sounds like. And it just sounds phenomenal. So I'm really excited to be hopefully getting that. I know it shipped.
Nice.
And yeah, that's kind of most of everything. I also had picked up another copy of River Disturbance, again by Deliverance. Again, I've been kind of on a Deliverance kick.
Yeah.
And that's a great record, highly underrated. I love the song "You Still Smile." Jimmy wrote it for his wife. And Belltown is great. The title track is great. After I Fell is great. It just, it's just a really good album. And I'm sure there's some other things too that will pop into my head after Lloyd shares whatever he's been listening to. But
very nice. Jeff Johnson has an album coming out with Phil Keaggy's guitar on it soon. If it's already dropped.
No way.
Can't wait to hear that. Lloyd, what have you been listening to lately?
So, man, I'm all over the place. I mean, my listening tastes include stuff far beyond just metal. I was really on a 90s shoegaze kick last night, pulling out my old records and stuff. On that note, I don't know if any of you are into this stuff, but there's some kind of black metal stuff that takes some of the shoegaze elements. So it's like that frigid, cold sounding black metal, but with like layers of atmospheres on it. And there's a couple of Christian bands from Europe doing that on the Snowstorm Productions label. And we'll have to maybe put the spelling of that in the comments because it's a Dutch label. So the spelling is unusual to English speakers. But Dwister Manlicht is one of those. Less of the shoegaze, more raw, primitive black metal. There's a great band from Sweden called Carve with a K, really doing some innovative stuff in the kind of underground black metal scene. I just reviewed the latest Symphony of Heaven full-length release, and they're kind of more in the blackened death metal range, but oh my gosh, the new album is so good. The production is incredible. If you like kind of stuff like A Hill to Die Upon and some of the later Ancestor stuff where they were going in a little bit more of a melodic direction, the new Symphony of Heaven is incredible. I can't recommend it highly enough. When I was living in Indiana, I got to see those guys live last summer and talk a little bit, but the new record is really, really good. So if you like extreme metal at all, even if you're not sure about black metal, death metal, I would say check it out. There's some progressive elements in there. There's a lot of solos. There's a lot of interesting kind of layers and stuff to it. It's really high quality stuff.
Yeah, get past the vocals and just dive into the instrumentation. It really
but, you know, it's one of those things, like, actually for a death metal release, there you can actually understand some of the vocals, which is really rare in that in those extreme styles, but you can actually understand a lot of what he's saying, which is it's a bonus if you like, you know, if the vocals put you off of extreme stuff.
One thing I really appreciate about both you guys and the crew and the Heaven's Metal magazine has always been wanting to serve the fans and the bands at the same time. Yeah. And you guys bring such talent to the game by your passion and your knowledge. Kevin, back in the day when White Throne magazine came out, I think I was still 8.5 by 14 folded over, a small size zine. Yeah. And White Throne came out 8.5 by 11 magazine size. And your guys' approach to rock journalism with gut level honesty really made me step up my game, bro. I know there's probably behind the scenes some competition between us, and but you really inspired me to step up my game as a journalist, to really be, because you always brought knowledge and resources and knowledge of history and passion. You know, your passion came through, and Lloyd, you're doing the same with your reviews and the diversity that we all represent as the whole crew. Really, really is cool. So anybody that has lost touch with Heaven's Metal magazine since we went out of print back in 2012, go to the website heavensmetalmagazine.com. You'll see new content all the time. You got news, album reviews. You'll be able to discover a lot of these bands that we're talking about, and it's really cool. There's three major. It's funny, my wife bugs me. I always like to use my fingers when I talk about numbers. There's three exciting announcements I want to make. There's so many cool things have been happening with Heaven's Metal lately. One of which is this platform called Faith Channel. And faithchannel.com/Heaven's Metal. They wanted to put some Heaven's Metal material up there. So I've been uploading all these videos that we have. We have like some of the guys like Brad Bowman and Jeff McCormick and Kevin and I, and we've all just done a bunch of video content. So that's all up on the Faith Channel platform. It's on your smart TV, so you can resource a lot of cool stuff. So that's really exciting. Another exciting tidbit is the people behind the Striper documentary, which is in production now. I'm not sure when it's going to come out. Nobody makes any promises for that, but hopefully by the end of this year, maybe early next year, we'll see that. But the people behind that are talking to me about doing a Christian heavy metal documentary. How long has that been? You know, have we been waiting for that? And so that is on the horizon. There's not a lot of stuff we can talk about yet because it's still being, you know, behind the scenes stuff being worked out. But a Christian heavy metal documentary that interviews all the right people and shows footage, that should be awesome. The people behind the Striper documentary are really good filmmakers, and they waited a long time to pick their director producer, and they picked a good one. And he loves Christian metal. And the third exciting thing is with the upcoming Immortal Fest. You know, the Immortal Fest, if you're not familiar with it, it's all these bands we love at like a 3-day weekend festival in Versailles, Ohio. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's a great venue with video screens, great production, and all these great bands. You know, Bloodgood, Barren Cross, Human Code, Deliverance. You'll see the bands that have played there. This year we got Vengeance and Saint and Fear Not, White Cross, Human Code, Deny the Fallen, Chaotic Resemblance, Reign of Glory, Millennial Reign. Their Bride is playing on the second. This is the first weekend, I guess. The second weekend's got Strike In, Weapons of God, Triton, Sacred Warrior, Neon Cross, Les Carlson, Randy Stonehill. Remember him? He is a pioneering rocker, not metal. The Protest. That would be so fun if Randy Stonehill worked up a metal tune. The Daniel Band is making a return to Immortal Fest. King James, Rex Carroll's band. It's going to be great. And every year, Anthony Gober, who does Anchor merchandising, he's been producing a program. And so he came to me about doing a program. And I said, yeah, let's make it the 40th anniversary print edition of Heaven's Metal magazine. Heaven's Metal started in June of 1985. This June is going to be 40 years from that date. So we're putting together a print edition, and the whole crew of Heaven's Metal is involved. We're writing articles about some of the bands that are playing, and it's going to have the band schedule and all that. And so I've been really having fun. I haven't done something like this in a long time, where I actually get a piece of paper out, and this is my page layout schemata, where I fill in what's going to be on every page, and it's a 32-page book. In just 2 days, or really a day and a half, I sold enough ads to pay for the production of this thing. So it's going to be on sale at the festival for $5, and Anthony's going to have a special. If you buy the festival T-shirt, you can get the magazine for $3, and it's probably going to sell out. We're going to order some extra copies to just sell online through mail order. But it's so fun, and this is a teaser. We don't know. It's going to have 2 covers to it. Back in the 2000s, HM Magazine used to do. It was always hard to pick who's going to be on the cover, and I came up with a double flip cover idea where half the book is right side up and the other half is upside down. So you flip it over, and you've got 2 bands on the cover. I had like Disciple and Skillet on one, and Under Oath and Anne Berlin on one. It was kind of a fun way to do it, and so we're tentatively planning. Now this could all change, but we're looking at having Vengeance on the cover, and the other cover is Bride. And so here's a couple just for teasers. Like I said, these are rough drafts of what the cover might look like. It's going to be a color cover. So I'm toying with the idea. We're kind of trying to decide between, do we put Troy or Dale on the cover? We didn't have a really cool shot like a Joe Perry, Steven Tyler shot where, Troy's up next, sharing the microphone with Dale. So we're kind of having to decide between the two. Which cover do you like best? And I got graphics we can share with you later as we progress. But that's exciting, coming out this summer, and I know the guys are excited. So Kevin and Lloyd, what do you guys think of writing for Heaven's Metal these days, and what are you excited about for the future? What are you working on?
I think I'll answer the second question first. What am I excited about? We've got some new members to the team, which is, I think, giving us a needed kick in the pants to get going. With some of the stuff that they're putting out, it's like, oh man, I got to up my game if I'm going to keep up with those guys. So that's great. Mm-hmm. And a couple of the newer guys, like myself, are kind of more into the extreme end of metal. So that's been really nice to not feel like it's just me and maybe Chris Gatto, covering the death and thrash and black metal and all that kind of stuff. So that's been kind of cool. As far as what I'm working on, I'm just trying to keep up, man. There's so much stuff coming out. Back in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot, but you kind of had to dig for it. Now we don't have to dig for it. I have, you guys probably have the same thing, but I have people that contact me individually because they know that I write for Heaven's Metal and say, hey, how can you get my band into Heaven's Metal? And so we try and help where we can, or I say, hey, send me some audio clips and I'll pass that on to Kevin so it can go on Heaven's Metal streaming radio and things like that. But just trying to keep up with it all. And my full-time job now is I'm a pastor. And so writing really is a hobby. And I try to do as good as I can, but man, it's hard to keep up with everything. I don't know if you guys can relate to that.
Yes. All of the above.
Right.
Time is the greatest commodity and there's never enough of it.
Yeah.
And you know, earlier this year, I took a step back from the radio station to let Chris Gatto,
Yeah.
you know, run and do the things, because honestly, I would spend several hours. I'd come on, I'd do programming. You try to program stuff for the radio station, whether it's for the month or for a day. You're adding tracks into it, deleting certain things out. Chris and I have had some communications, and probably going to do a little bit more still with it than I thought. I will say, if you're not listening to Heaven's Metal streaming radio, you're missing out. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's on the Live 365 platform. It's also available on the Get Me Radio platform. You can listen to it if you live in the United States, Canada, England, and now if you're in Mexico, you can listen to Heaven's Metal streaming radio. They Live 365 announced about a month ago that streaming rights have been opened, and they have an agreement in Mexico now. You can stream it south of the border here, and but it takes time. And so I'm excited about the station, you know, being able to expand. I would hear all the time people from Brazil, people from Central America, people from Mexico, Australia. I'd like to be able to say, hey, in Sweden, but they're not open in a lot of these countries yet. This isn't the same as Spotify. You know, Spotify has a different deal with the publishing companies and the record companies. But anyway, I'm excited. I'm really trying to get back into the swing of doing some more writing and not just reviews. A couple of things, and as Lloyd mentioned, you know, the new guys that have come on board, yeah, they've given us, some of us old legacy guys, a swift kick in the pants.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of ideas that I want to embrace the legacy side, not exclusively, but you know, there's still things to be said about the legacy acts. And when we say legacy, I mean Saint, Rez, Daniel Band, Barnabas, but that could also include Narnia. Narnia has been around for what, 25 years at this point?
Yeah.
Demon Hunter, how long is Demon? 25 years? I mean, all of these bands, there's so much out there. And you know, and it's not just the music part of it, of course, but it's also what it means, the lyrical content and how it inspires and nurtures us. And those are all really such important things.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Hey, you brought up writing. I wanted to pitch my book, Rock Stars on God, Volume 3. In the pages of Heaven's Metal, I would always interview the mainstream artists and ask them about music and art and their latest video and their latest tour. But I also ask them two questions in every interview. What do you think of Jesus Christ? And what do you think about his claim to be the way, the truth, and the life? No one comes to the Father but by me. And I had various responses to that question. Some open up and really talk, and some try to steer the conversation away from spiritual things. And it's always a good read. It became almost everybody's favorite part of the magazine. When a new issue arrived in the mail to subscribers, or you bought it off the newsstand, that's the first article a lot of people would turn to. Who did they interview this time? And people would always say, hey, you need to compile these and put them into a book. And so I just came out with Volume 3 that's got all these people on it. You know, Black Sabbath, Foreigner, Styx, and Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Yngwie Malmsteen, which we talked about earlier today. And the Trans-Siberian Orchestra interview actually has an unheard of, unearthed treasure of that interview. When it was published in Heaven's Metal fanzine, it didn't get completed. It was like to be continued, and it was never continued. When I was putting this book together last summer, I came across that, couldn't find the transcribed interview, so I had to go back to the micro cassette in my little micro cassette player with a footnote so I could transcribe it. And so there's 10 more pages of interviews from the late great Paul O'Neill of Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So that's available, and like it says at the bottom scrolling, you can get a $5 discount to buy it now if you use the coupon word playoffs. And Playoffs is a reference to my other book, my novel Desert High, which is about high school football and time travel. But that's another story for another day. All the stuff's available at the HM Press website. It's where we sell back issues of Heaven's Metal and HM Magazine. There's still some of those left, and they're available at the original cover prices. I'm not charging $100 per issue. It's like if it said $3.50 in the day, it's for $3.50 now. And my books are all there too, and a little bit of music there, some older stuff, and also PJ Bostic, who's dropping a new album in the next week or so. I've got some of his music there, and so that's a lot of fun. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, PJ's new record is really good.
You like it?
Definitely on that progressive side of things, with a kind of a hard rock, not really a heavy metal, but kind of a hard rock edge. To me, it's kind of like a mix. If you took Rush between 1978 and 1981, musically, that's what you're going to get with PJ Bostic. Fantastic instrumentation, great songs, highly memorable, and the production's amazing. So
that's
you,
good.
You hear that Rush? Sorry, you hear that Rush influence going all the way back to Paragon too, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that connection until years later. I think only in the past maybe 5-10 years. I was like, wait a second, the guy from Grandma Train was in Paragon? Because I loved that Paragon track. I never had the full demo, but that track that was on the Underground Metal compilation, I just thought that song was amazing. It's obviously clearly, Rush influence, but I just always loved that track. And then to find out that the grunge guy from the 90s was in that band, it kind of flipped my lid a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, PJ's awesome. He's so embarrassed about that Paragon photo, though. It's an 8x10 glossy, and he's wearing these spandex striped pants. I always get a chuckle when I bring that out.
Just show him the early Guardian photos and say, it's okay, man.
Yeah. Fusion and Guardian.
No offense, Guardian guys. We love you. It's just the photos. I mean, Barren Cross, we all did it back then. They all did it. You show pictures of me in high school and you could point and laugh, at my mullet and whatever else. So,
my hair was down to here.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. What is Stryken going to wear on stage for their uniforms when they play at Immortal Fest? They used to wear the motocross gear like Guardian. The armor of God is what they call it.
AOG, armor of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought it was funny to think of them as an Assembly of God band.
I had the same thought.
Band, Assembly of God Church. Crush the head of Satan. It'll be fun to see them back. This Immortal Fest is a pretty amazing 3-day festival. They have so many bands packed over a 3-day weekend. And it's the 40th anniversary for Sanctuary, which is hosting this show. Pastor Bob's going to have a special message there. That should be cool. They're also having a pro-life day with Brian Kemper from Rock for Life.
Nice.
Yep.
I've wanted to go. It is the timing and just the funds, the money to get together, because that's a good 2,500 mile flight. So
and then a rental car once you get there, because LaSalle's, like Doug says, kind of in the middle of nowhere, so you got to fly to Cincinnati or Dayton or Indianapolis or someplace and still drive in.
Indeed. Well, unfortunately, we got to wrap up, so I guess we'll just wind down in the last minute and just thank everybody for coming. This is our first time doing this, so we didn't have time or weren't savvy enough to really follow along with the chats. There's been a lot of fun chats come up on the screen. Some cool people. One guy referenced Randy Stonehill. Randy's got, he goes back to Larry Norman in the late 60s, radically saved from being a hippie and a musician. Yeah, and some really cool music, and he's playing at Immortal Fest, which is amazing.
Stop the world! I want to get off.
Keep me running, or some heavy stuff he can do.
Yeah.
Anything you guys want to say goodbye? We got about 30 seconds left. Actually, our time's running out right now.
Good to be here.
Great to be here, and hope to do it again. And stay close to the Lord.
Amen.
Amen. Jesus is King. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And we are going to sign off.